Right. Right, recording on. Very good. Well, welcome everybody. It's extremely exciting to have our two guests with us today for this luncheon. You start writing the invitations to these events, and between the writing of the invitation and the event itself, you have a $500 million heist at a crypto exchange, and suddenly our guests become even more exciting than they already were. So we're very lucky indeed to have both gentlemen with us here today. To give you a very quick introduction, I think we're all familiar with the environment and how quickly moving it all is. But what you have here today is two important voices from two sides of this story that very certainly need telling by us and no doubt by the rest of the world. One is the regulatory side, which today to some extent will be represented by Ken Kawai, who is a lawyer who began life as a derivatives trader. A year ago, he was telling us that the blockchain-related practice at his law firm, Anderson, Mori and Tomotsune, was 2 people, and now it's 15. And at that rate, it's following the price of Bitcoin. So you should have 2 million people working for you next year. And Hikaru Kusaka, who is on the innovative side of blockchain, he has decamped from the utopia of Tokyo to what he calls the utopia of Tallinn in Estonia. And that is for him been an experience that I'm sure he'll tell us a bit more about, but that has put him what he thinks is sort of front and center of the real, the serious innovation, not just the chatter about innovation that you get from some of the large financial firms here in Japan. So what I think we'll do is we'll start with a short presentation from each of our two guests, with Mr. Kawai going first, and then we'll open things to a broader discussion. So, Mr. Kawai, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Len, for the introduction. My name is Ken Kawai, a partner of Anderson Mori Tomotsune. My specialty is fintech regulations, especially those of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And as introduced, I started my career as a trader in a Japanese bank almost 20 years ago. And then after that, I changed my career to become a lawyer in late 2000. So, and I used to focus on derivatives regulations, but 2.5 years ago, I met blockchain, and that fascinated me a lot. So at that time, there was no regulation at all in Japan on cryptocurrencies, and also, of course, on the blockchain. So I just meet people, study technologies as my hobby. But in 2016, the government decided to draft cryptocurrency regulations under the Payment Service Act here in Japan. And that act, the amended act was, that amended act came into force in April 2017. As you know, after that, currently 16 exchanges are licensed in Japan now, and I think 1/3 of the clients is my client. But so I'm currently a legal advisor of the Japan Cryptocurrency Business Association, in short, JCBA, one of the major industry organizations here in Japan. So we are creating a self-regulatory rules and those kind of things on such as marketing, such as ICOs, email and KYC. We have the organizations have those kind of self-regulations because the current regulations does not regulate everything. Japan is the first country in the world to define the cryptocurrency and what is the cryptocurrency business, exchange business. But because the government would like to facilitate the innovation as well, they don't impose very severe regulations such as securities law to cryptocurrencies. It's admitted as one of the payment methods under the Payment Service Act. This is the reason because the government would like to see the. Of course, they would like to regulate the cryptocurrency, but also they would like to facilitate the innovation of the blockchain and cryptocurrencies. That's why they choose the Payment Service Act to regulate the cryptocurrency. That's a brief story of the regulations.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Kusaka-san, perhaps
yes.
You have a presentation and then I think a short video afterwards too. So maybe.
Oh, the video?
No, do that after. If you
yeah. Okay. I'll put it on the map. So, good evening, everyone.
Oh, good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. Afternoon. Yeah.
It's evening in Estonia.
Actually, in the morning in Estonia, by the way. So I'm Hikaru, a co-founder of BLOCKHIVE, and as you can see, I'm from Estonia. This is a laughing point. And I have been in the blockchain sector for 5 years, and I started by developing and creating a blockchain-related service to the large company and large entities, not only Japan, also overseas, basically behind the scenes. And early last year, we decided to step into the Estonia because I found that Estonia is a utopia for blockchain enthusiasts and technologists, developers, because Estonia is the only country which successfully utilized blockchain technology into their government system 10 years ago. So, which was before the Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper is out, which is quite fascinating. Yeah, and I'm also an advisor of the Estonia's e-residency team's Estcoin project, maybe as you heard of that before, maybe last year, August. And this project is already also proceeding right now, and Estonia is preparing to step into the first nation ICO country ever. And as BLOCKHIVE, what we are doing right now is that since our background is technologists, developers, we have more than 30 engineers in Japan and Vietnam and Estonia right now. And we are working closely together with traditional and non-blockchain companies, which has synergy that using blockchain technology and making new business model together with creating, let's say, the future society. But on the other hand, if we talk about the innovations that the startups use this word as execute to diffuse or away from regulations. So these days that people are saying that if regulations are restricted, as you see that what happened with CoinCheck, but some people are still see that regulation is not to be too restricted or restricted too much. It might kill the innovations, but my opinion that even if the regulation is restricted, the real innovator can face and overcome the regulations with their brilliant ideas. That's what I see in Estonia. And also that the brilliant idea innovators not fight against, but work closely together with the public sector. This is what's happening in Estonia. So what we have right now in Estonia is we have right, combined team, public and the private sector, and we are proceeding Estcoin project, and then also how Estonia can be the ICO-friendly country. And Estonia also thinks that soon the world will, almost all currency will be digitalized, maybe using blockchain technology. In that way, how the government can do the taxation part. So that's the thing Estonia is thinking, and then they proceeded to issue their native tokens right now. Yeah. So, and also, as I understand that the regulations getting restricted, the reason of regulation is restricted is one thing, is ICO, which was booming last year. And I also say that last year in the blockchain industry is the year of ICO. And we see a lot of scam. We see a lot of good innovative project. But as regulators see, there is a problem and needs for investors protections, so that I see regulations are getting restricted in this year. So, and what we are doing as a private sector right now is that improving and inventing ICO again, which means that we actually announced 1 month ago about the new borderless fundraising structure called Initial Loan Procurement, which also called ILP. This is quite similar with ICO, but we do fundraising. We provide a fundraising structure in the form of loan, so that the investor goes to creditor, basically. But the creditor still they lend money to the company, which issue native tokens, and they can participate in the global the project. The difference between ICO and LP is that we designed this fundraising structure from a regulator's point of view, and also as a company's point of view, that the taxation part for ICO is really tough things to consider with, because if you try to do ICO in Japan, the money you fundraise might be considered as profit, which means it's taxable, and you need to pay almost 40% of tax. And who wants to do that ICO in Japan? But Estonia, luckily corporate tax is zero, but see other world, there's a corporate tax. So that to consider the ICO is innovative idea in the new fundraising structure, but on the other hand, there are so many problems around ICO. So one thing we face, and we promise that we closely working with regulators as an innovator, is that we promising a new fundraising structure as LP, which can which probably can solve the regulations problem and also taxation problem. And I have a short video for what ILP. So I want to conclude my speech with this video. Thank you very much.
The exponential growth in ICOs has been staggering. It allows entrepreneurs to pursue their dreams without giving up equity in their companies or giving venture capitalists a seat in the boardroom. At the start of the ICO boom in 2017, most offerings quickly sold out, and record-breaking amounts were raised. But now we see that many don't get fully funded. Competition is getting fierce, and there are some big hurdles to overcome. How will a sale be implemented technically? How about legality and compliance with regulations? How does one deal with taxation? At TokenNote, we've developed an innovation that solves these issues. Say hello to ILP. Initial loan procurement works like an ICO, but in the form of a loan. Instead of investing in tokens that have little liquidity and are bound to be extremely volatile, investors become creditors. Creditors provide loans by entering a loan agreement using a smart contract with the issuer. When creditors enter a legally binding loan contract, they receive what we call Future Loan Access Tokens, or flags. Each project that uses TokenNote's white-labeled ILP will brand these tokens as they see fit. For businesses that seek funding, raising funds through an ILP is more affordable, easier to set up, and it is regulation friendly because we've developed the fundraising structure from the standpoint of the regulator. Funds raised in the form of loans are not subject to tax. Flat are transferable to others and can be traded on the free market. And ILP makes it easy to share profit or revenue as interest payments for their creditors. It's time for the next big leap in fundraising. Token note.
Yep. Thank you.
Excellent. There's another name for us all to learn. Thank you both very much indeed. And before we open it to questions, just a couple of things that perhaps we didn't cover in those two just opening remarks. Both of you, in different capacities, have been advisors to the Japanese government on the themes that you just discussed. And I wonder if you could both just expand a little bit on what the nature of that advice was and what it was like to deal with, and what the sort of the state of mind of the Japanese government was when you were offering that advice.
Yeah, so before stating that, I guess that everybody wants to hear about CoinCheck. But, of course, as I'm a legal advisor of the association, so sometimes I may be vague, and some questions I cannot respond. So, first of all, please understand that kind of things. So, of course, so before this. Of course, the Japanese government, so because I'm a legal advisor of the self-regulatory body, so I quite often see the regulator, the Financial Service Agency of Japan, and we sometimes exchange views, and also they would like to have our opinions, because the innovation is too fast for them. They cannot understand what let's say the token is, what's the real function of the blockchain, what is the wallet, what is the cold wallet, what is the hot wallet. So let's say at the beginning of last year, their knowledge is very limited in the sense. So, of course, every time, sometimes only between the lawyers and only between the conversation made only between the regulators and lawyers. Sometimes with the those kind of tech companies. But anyhow, so we are co-working with the regulator. We will sometimes assist them to understand what kind of technology it is used. So, and the basic stance of the government or the regulator, their, let's say, mission is to facilitate the innovation of fintech with the moderate and prudent regulation. That's the basic stance of them. It's a very different from the past regulator stance here in Japan. The Japanese regulators are used to be very conservative. They are not the first mover. But in this field, I'm not sure whether FSA expects that no other countries follow that movement. I'm not sure, but anyhow, they are the first regulator to officially made their law that regulate the cryptocurrency. So, and I think they've been thinking it's a good thing. So Japan is becoming the first and most friendly country to fintech business. So, but of course, the users' protection is one of the most important things. So they eyes both on those kind of regulation side and facilitation of the innovation side. So, but actually, the development of this industry is beyond everybody's comprehension. Nobody expects such a kind of ICO has been done last year. And it's very surprising. Let's say over $100 million is easily procured. And there are so many, there are numbers of ICOs who raise that kind of amount. So it's very surprising. And also, we also, and maybe Kusaka-san also, even those who are familiar with this industry did not expect such a thing happens. Of course, the FSA did not accept such a kind of things happened. So they currently, they have to put much emphasis on the regulation side because there are so many scam ICOs and the system found very weak in some exchange. And of course, in the blockchain, the system is the most important part. But please understand that coin check problem is not the problem of the blockchain itself. The currency, cryptocurrency named NEM, NEM, was hacked, was stolen from the coin check. But NEM blockchain is working as usual. So it's not this coin check problem is, of course, it's a sad thing, but it is not a problem of blockchain itself. But I'm going to say the thing that somewhat conflicts with my previous statement. But currently, exchange is the entry point to access to the blockchain for ordinary people. So the problem is appeared that they are storing the name on the hot wallet, which usually which always connected to internet. And the exchange system is out of the blockchain, but it's always connected to the internet. So if the genius hacker attack it, they will be withdrawn from the exchange. If they store most of the name in their cold wallet, that is offline. If they did that, most of their, let's say, name was very difficult to be stolen. So this theft happened actually the outside of the blockchain. But of course, it's a part of the system. So to facilitate the blockchain business, we also care so much about the nexus to the blockchain. That means an exchange. So that is an important point. So I think the regulations on the exchange would be getting severer. But currently, of course, to do that in the hard law, the government need to, let's say, revise the current regulations or law, and it will take more than 1 year or so. So currently, what we are discussing with the regulator is that we need to have the prudent regulations, good regulations on exchange or ICO or those kind of things using self-regulations. So it's a good approach for this kind of new industry, cutting-edge industry. It's very, the old regulator cannot catch up with what's happening in the real world. So with self-regulatory organization must have the good self-regulations. So we are currently working on that, but our role, I think, is very important to, let's say, protect this industry, or let's say keep this kind of development. If we fail to do that, then the harsh regulations will be imposed. So that's what I think right now.
Yes. Yep. So let me talk from an innovator's point of view. So yeah, also maybe I should talk about something related to CoinCheck, but I'm pretty happy to see that the Japan's regulators moving so fast and thinking steps so fast, more than I expected. I thought that maybe like later, like a year or 2 years, they may be like taking a large step, but they're taking steps so fast. But personally, I think that the Japan's regulator restrict more for cryptocurrency in Japan. Even I say that I talk from regulator's point of view, because that like a cryptocurrency exchange, even I still think that it's needed at this moment for smooth liquidity from fiat currency to cryptocurrency, if there are people who are interested in cryptocurrency. But on the other hand, cryptocurrency exchange service is just let's say not innovative service. It's needed, but it's a copycat for bank. Basically, it's not innovative idea. It's a startup doing bank-like service. There's nothing. There's nothing related to blockchain. They just operate in using cryptocurrency exchange service. That's it. So, but the idea of blockchain is a decentralized. So it was born from the people who thinks that the bank is untrustful anymore. So then now cryptocurrency exchange, bank is untrustful anymore, but the people trusting cryptocurrency exchange. What they are doing right now is the same thing what bank has done, and the bank what is doing right now too. So the thing happened these days in the cryptocurrency exchange is the thing what happened in the bank. Even we see that the like SWIFT, bank wire, and also credit card, there's like skimming. There's like massive number of money theft. Like comparing to the money stolen, like NIM stolen from CoinCheck, still a SWIFT and then like banks money stolen is a massive number. So that's why I think that the like Japan's regulator, since there is comparing to other country, there is a large number of cryptocurrency exchange in Japan, so that the Japan's regulator takes a step and then restrict more and more for cryptocurrency exchange, because it's almost same as bank. And this is fully my personal opinion, but maybe in some future, the cryptocurrency exchange might be operated by only bank. then like, that there's like largest 3 banks in here, and then also there's still like SBI or other like a bank operating cryptocurrency exchange. But as I see that it might be happen that the startups don't operate cryptocurrency exchange, and then on the other hand, like a bank operating cryptocurrency exchange, because what they're providing to the people walking down the street is same service that what bank have done. So people are arguing that if the Japan's regulators restrict the laws with cryptocurrency, but the cryptocurrency is just a tip for blockchain technology. We don't see that only cryptocurrency, but the blockchain technology. If Japan's regulators and government say that we restrict the using blockchain, then maybe I fight against the regulators. But for now, I don't see that. They are talking about only cryptocurrency and act like bank, and those things, maybe things for also Kawai-san's help, Japan can reach to the highest standard of regulations comparing to other countries. Yeah.
I think it's time to open it all to questions, starting with the working press. Yep. You can announce your affiliation as well. Thank you.
Thanks. My name is Tim Horniak. I'm a freelancer here. Thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. It's been almost 4 years since the big Mt. Gox disaster. And I would have thought that in the past 4 years, the FSA would have been studying very hard and would be totally on top of the new technologies. But you're saying that as of a year ago, they were pretty clueless about it. Do you see any real signs? Sorry, 2 questions if I may. Do you see any real signs that regulators in Japan are really getting a handle on these innovations, and they're actually at a level where they could possibly prevent another large-scale crime like we just saw with CoinCheck? And my second question is, a lot of this stuff, as you know, is very pie in the sky compared to everyday financial reality in Japan. In Tokyo, you can go to many, many restaurants where they don't even accept credit cards. As you know, cash is still very popular here. How do you see these kinds of technologies like blockchain making a difference in everyday life here in Japan? As you've described Japan as one of the most advanced countries in the world, friendly to fintech, etc. But it's still there's a big disconnect between this kind of talk that we see online and everyday reality, like I was just mentioning. So how do you see these technologies impacting everyday life, and when do you expect that could happen? Thank you.
Okay. So could you repeat the first question? So.
Yeah, the first question was, what signs do you see among regulators here in Japan that they will be able to prevent another large-scale crime like we saw with Mt. Gox and with CoinCheck? It's been 4 years since Mt. Gox, and are we going to have another one of these crimes in a year, or is there something that you have seen that is actually persuading you that it's not going to happen?
Yeah, okay, so... Yeah, thank you for the question. So yeah, of course, this the current so-called cryptocurrency law was born because that Mt. Gox failure. So that was the aim. One of the big aim is to prevent those kind of things happen again. But it happened again. But so, what was the so one of the important regulation is the segregation requirements. So, in the Mt. Gox case, the company's money and cryptocurrency, and also the users' cryptocurrency and money are not segregated at the time. That was the real problem at the time. So current regulation has a rule to, let's say, the currency has a segregation requirement now, so the users' cryptocurrency must be segregated from the less company's cryptocurrency. So this is the idea how to prevent that kind of big turmoil. So in the, let's say, so I compare with securities brokers or something like that. In the, let's say, the under the current rules of the Financial Instrument Exchange Act, the securities law here in Japan, all the securities must be stored in the outside of the company using to put it in the trust bank or other things. But currently, there's no such kind of system in cryptocurrency. There's not trust scheme of the cryptocurrency or others. So what was required is to have two different cryptocurrency wallets. And one of the wallets, in one of the wallets, only the cryptocurrencies belong to the users are stored. And in another wallet, the company's proprietary cryptocurrencies are stored. So that is the rule. But unfortunately, in this CoinCheck's case, all of the, even if it's segregated, but it's this user, the wallet for the users was hacked as well. So that's why all of the tokens are stolen. So this is what happened. So in the real problem, so because and currently the regulation has not clearly mentions how much cryptocurrencies must be stored in the offline wallet or that kind of things. So currently we are discussing in the self-regulatory body what kind of how many cryptocurrencies must be stored in the offline wallet or those kind of things. It's not written in the law. So so to prevent those kind of things, we must have that kind of rule. So, and also another thing is that some trust bank is going to provide a trust scheme of the cryptocurrencies. So that's another idea, but nobody knows whether the trust bank would be hacked or not. So, of course, maybe we need some further development of the technology, but what is the best way is to store the most of the cryptocurrencies in the hard wallet, offline wallet, cold wallet. So we must have that kind of rule. I think the Kusaka-san may have the idea from the technology side.
Okay, for cryptocurrency exchange things?
Hacking.
Whether we think that this could happen again?
Yeah, I think it may happen again.
Yeah, I also think.
Happen again. Because cryptocurrency exchange is totally centralized. And I'm not against the centralized thing because like a family is basically centralized and father and mother. So, but you know what, like laziness of engineers sometimes creates like world-changing ideas. But on the other hand, like laziness of idea in cryptocurrency exchange make this happen. So I think this happened with laziness of engineers inside of a cryptocurrency exchange. Not pointed out somebody else, but this is really true. Like, I see that other cryptocurrency exchange say that 100% of clients' cryptocurrency is stored on a cold wallet. That's some other cryptocurrency exchange is doing. This is not laziness, but this is hard thing to do, because if you store 100% of the cryptocurrency in cold wallet, then it's pretty hard to provide liquidity, so that you need to make effort to build up the whole system. But if you don't make effort to do that, you can reduce cost, which you can make profit a lot. So everything related to the laziness. So that the wall in the cryptocurrency exchange, the laziness caused this happen again. So I think it's different wall in the other thing in engineer have done. So I think it's tough things that how the Japanese regulator can figure out the investors' protection for this, because like a trust bank, how much they can support. Like if there is if they're like a Bitcoin hacked and all Bitcoin hacked, like then how much they can support? Who knows that it's an internal, like internal act? So it's impossible to find out. Like some people see that the optimistic article that the NEM right now, which is stolen by hacker, is a traceable, but it's traceable, but it's also possible to convert in other currencies without noticing, but without noticing. That's the good point of blockchain. And like there is a mixing service or shapeshift service which you can switch cryptocurrency not using cryptocurrency exchange, which we call a decentralized exchange. So decentralized exchange these days are not governed or organized by centralized entity, which also provides you that is safe, because if there is no centralized entity that keeps your cryptocurrency on a hot wallet, centralized database, then no one can hack. So that from this year, I see that the decentralized exchange will spotlight it more than the latest cryptocurrency exchange, like before we see. Yeah, but the problem of decentralized exchange is that you can't convert to the cash, like Japanese yen or pound, euro, through the decentralized exchange. Basically, like Bitcoin to Ethereum or Bitcoin to NEM. So with the currency which called altcoin, alternative coins. So, but this is also personal opinion, but the currency is something you don't buy, basically. So currency is something you earn. So these days, people buying currency. And so if you go maybe in China, you don't buy Chinese yen, you exchange Chinese yen. So idea of decentralized exchange is that there's like swapping those cryptocurrency or tokens without centralized organization. So I think since cryptocurrency exchange hacked will or might happen again, decentralized exchange pop up more in this year and the next year. Yeah. That's what I think for that.
Okay. So I'm going to respond to the second question, cashless matters, right? So as you pointed out, Japanese like cash, notes.
Cash is king.
Yeah, cash is king here, and currently, of course, there's something like Apple Pay, Line Pay, all those kind of services, but people still like cash. Because Japanese banking system is so well established. Everywhere you can find an ATM. If you are in the suburb, it may be not so easy, but also the prepaid payment card is well distributed. So that's why people still likes cash. But and of course, currently the cryptocurrency is not suitable for the payment, because the high volatility of the price. To become a real payment method, the value must be stable, I think. So, but interestingly, so I'm from the late 2017, I see very good names, not the exchange, but also doing the payment, or let's say the carriers, or let's say other internet companies, online service providers. Those kind of guys would like to enter into this cryptocurrency industry. They eyes on the possibility of using it as a payment method in their system, or so currently I'm working with several projects, that kind of thing. So last year, people are eyes much on the, let's say, making money, losing money, those kind of things, speculation. But and also people are still seeing that kind of things. But underneath, currently, those kind of interesting projects are going on. So for that kind of service, what is very important is to issue the token of which price is basically stable. Not necessarily to be equal to 1 coin, 1 yen, but not so volatile one. If these kind of coins are circulated, then it will be much more convenient than the current, let's say, Alipay or Line Pay or those kind of things, because these kind of Alipay or Line Pay or those kind of cannot cross the country. So Line Pay is, or those kind of Apple Pay, in Japan, it's 1 yen, it's linked to yen, but cryptocurrency is not linked to any fiat currency. So it can, and also it's on the blockchain, it can smoothly cross the borders. So if this trend will continue to develop, then the cryptocurrency on the blockchain may become the not number one, but one of the good choice for the payment. And I do hope so, but it's not going to occur straight away. But 2018 is the first year that the people would thinks that the cryptocurrency may become a real payment method. It includes my hope, of course. Yeah.
Kusaka-san.
Yes. I see that like China or Sweden is already getting cashless country. Like Sweden, 98 of money transaction is already cashless, and people walking down the street rarely use cash. And some cases that like restaurant don't accept cash. It might be like copy and print it in your house's printer, but the cash, but the like digital currency, it's pretty hard. If even if it's used the blockchain technology, and it's pretty hard to copy and paste, and then making your own currency and then use it for restaurant. So that the Swedish believes digital currency, not cryptocurrency or not like tokens things, but the digital cash rather than cash, physical cash. And China also that. And so I think that Japan also has the potential to be like a cashless society. But on the other hand, as Kawai-san said, that one of the problem is the price of cryptocurrency, because most of the cryptocurrency issued these days for, let's say, not investing, but speculations. Because that some tokens or cryptocurrency issued last year, I see that more than 1,000 types of token or cryptocurrency, and some have themed that this is a payment solution, but they have done ICO. But the ICO, they kind of, they provide those tokens with discount price, which implies that this token's price will be increase, so that it never goes stable. Which means that those cryptocurrency are not going to use for payment solution. That's what I think. But on the other hand, there also might be the potential that, it is happening right now already. But like a bank in Japan or like centralized bank issue digital cash using blockchain or whatever. But it might be happen. But because logistically, think about that like. Issuing physical currency and issuing digital currency, they're comparing and talking about the cost. It's easy to compare, so that also Canada's government doing a proof of concept to issuing digital currency, and then they have done that. I think 3 to 4 years ago, in Australia is also considering that. India is considering that because for government cost. Because the 500 yen coin in Japan, it costs more than 500 yen to make. that it doesn't make sense for me. So in that point, we really should make digital cash society. And if we say that cash is king, that the citizens thinks that the cash is king, so we should change the idea in that ways. What's happening in Estonia right now is that the 51% of the land in Estonia is covered with forest, and they are protecting those woods. So that they want to reduce papers, they create digital society. And all the agreement, they don't use paper. They don't trust paper. If you hand in paper contract, lawyers basically do, they don't trust you. They only trust digitalized papers, digitalized loan agreement, digitalized agreement thing. Everything have done in digitalized things, because it also makes sense for reducing a cost, and protecting their land as the forest. So everything is an ecosystem, and think that way. Yeah. So that it's maybe the different point of view, but I think it has to be and it should be, and Japan has the potential to do that.
Good. Are you happy with that answer?
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Sorry, Martin first, and then Nicholas. Thank you.
Martin Kölling, Handelsblatt, Germany. You answered my questions to some extent. Bicamera, one was about using Bitcoin, for example, as payment method. Bicamera introduced it last year, so you mentioned that you think it will take off this year, but I wonder, retrospectively, how much was it, what was, for example, Bitcoin used as payment method 2017 already, because mid of last year there were big expectations by the exchanges that basically Bitcoin will take off as payment method. So I wonder what the reality is. And my second question was related to basically, will cryptocurrency crime pay off in the future? You mentioned already that basically you can track the money, but then there are these decentralized exchanges where you can swap them. So basically, you know that it's being swapped, but people can still get away with it, basically, right? So, but I wonder whether in the future whether you think that it will become more and more difficult for bank robbers or exchange robbers in this case to get the money out of the system, and basically that there are more or less being stuck with their cash in the system and can't really use it, or whether you think this is really a profitable crime in the years to come.
What do you think, Kusaka-san?
So let's see. So where should I go with that? Yeah. So you talk about the big camera thing, but I see that for big camera thing and in the payment solutions as a payment solution, cryptocurrency as a payment solution, but there are many restaurants and shops introducing payment solution, cryptocurrency as a payment solution. But if you try to find out the statistics, and there are really few people using cryptocurrency as a payment solution. I think which is because that they want to hold those cryptocurrency. If the price is rising, you want to spend. And it's a different point, but also taxation. If you spend it, it's taxable. So you don't want to use. So people don't want to use. So in that point, I think we don't see this year people increase the number of people who use cryptocurrency for payment not going to increase this year, I think, or quite few increase, but maybe. Yeah, I don't think that this is not going to increase. And the point, what was the question again?
I'd like to add one thing about the big camera thing. So, of course, we don't have the statistics, but one of the problem is the rise of the transaction cost. So, it used to say, when the Bitcoin price was low, people say that to transfer the money costs only, let's say, 10 yen or 3 yen or something like that at the time. It's something. Sometimes it's like a 2,000 or 3,000 per transaction. Yeah. So because the transaction costs, and also it is one of the reasons is that the Bitcoin price is soared up. The other issue is that the block size is relatively small, so it can handle only a couple of several transactions per second. So the stream, the track is very crowded right now. So in that sense, Bitcoin itself is not suitable for payment, but it's a kind of the, let's say, technology matters. So let's say in the Bitcoin Cash, the transaction cost is much less. So it's up to what kind of cryptocurrency is suitable for that kind of payment service. So current Bitcoin is not a payment method, but something like an asset, I should say. That is one point, I think. So Kusaka-san, Hikaru mentioned about the taxation issues. So under the current Japanese tax, if you, let's say, buy at 100,000 yen by one Bitcoin, by paying 100,000 yen, then it's sold up to 1 million yen. So, of course, if you sell it, you need to, let's say, the profit 900,000 is taxable. But even if you use it to pay to buy, let's say, TV or other things, even if in that kind of case, let's say 900,000 yen would be taxed. So in that case, nobody would like to use it to buy, let's say, TV or other things by Bitcoin.
So we say that this is not the regulations and a technology problem, but the taxation problem we have right now in Japan to solve.
Yeah.
Just quickly,
Yeah.
just quickly, does crime pay, is it going to pay, or you mentioned earlier, Kusaka-san, you were saying that these hacks are going to happen again and again if the engineers don't tighten things up. And, but Martin's question was will the thieves be able to get their money? Will it always pay? Will it be profitable to?
The system, basically, as you mentioned the exchanges.
You mean through cash, like physical cash?
Yeah, can they?
It's possible.
In the future,
it's possible. If I'm a hacker, I try to hack all the Japanese cryptocurrency exchange, then I stole it. I don't do that, but don't point it out me if the new one happens. But then I keep it. If I believe Bitcoin still alive 10 years later, then I keep it. Maybe 5 years, 6 years. Then I go Switzerland. Then there is a cryptocurrency exchange which you can convert Bitcoin to Switzerland franc. Then I convert it, asking to my friends. Then there is so many like not exchange but the peer-to-peer transaction. There's a local Bitcoin. Local Bitcoin is that you can ask to like somebody else who you don't even know that if somebody wants to buy Bitcoin and hey, if you want to buy Bitcoin and I have 1 Bitcoin, why don't you buy my Bitcoin? Then you can give me cash. Right. That's what you can do, and this is my story. Like when I went to Shanghai like last year, and I was out of cash. Then I asked my taxi driver that can I pay by Bitcoin, and he doesn't know about Bitcoin, and I explained briefly about Bitcoin and asked him to download Bitcoin wallet and then pay by Bitcoin. And I also tell him that if you want to exchange this Bitcoin, and you can find out cryptocurrency exchange or cryptocurrency ATM, or you can find somebody else who wants to get Bitcoin from your friends, then you can get cash. So that's the thing. In that case, even the like a transaction or blockchain are traceable. So we in the world still have the untrackable cash, physical cash. So that, as I told, we should make it like a cashless society. If there is no cash, physical cash, then all the thing is like trackable.
Right.
Yeah. So that the problem is there is still a physical cash, so that there is a way that hackers can be arrested. But if there is only digital cash, then everything is trackable. So only the last thing you need to do is that pay something because you need to live your life. So there is a physical cash so that you can be still try to be like anonymous.
You happy with that? Well, I'll see you in Zurich in 5 years' time. Right? Nicholas, you still got a question?
Thanks. I was fascinated by your comment that the primary attraction of virtual currencies is evasion of Japanese gai tameho. But I want to ask about your comments about the FSA and they're not understanding these things. So my understanding is that from the beginning of September, you had to get approval for an exchange, and that there are 16 exchanges that are approved, and that CoinCheck was not one of those, and that you have to have approval within 2 months, and now being more than 2 months after September, that means that CoinCheck had repeatedly failed to get approval from the FSA. So I suppose the first question is, what did they fail on? Did they fail on their handling of accounts? And so what law do you think that the FSA would have had that would have been better, that would have prevented this happening? On the other side, The suggestion seems to be that the hacking was quite possibly done by for example, a government-backed body. I mean, a lot of the hacks in Korea have been linked back to North Korea, have they not? So what change in the law would a smarter FSA have made that would have prevented hacking? Because your implication seems to be that it was if the FSA were smarter, then banks wouldn't be broken into.
Okay, good question. So, firstly, you mentioned that 2 months period. It's a kind of standard period, so it's not necessary to be 2 months. At the end of the September, 11 exchanges are registered, licensed. Then after that, 5 other exchanges are registered, and still the CoinCheck's application filing was under their review right now. So the regulation says that those guys who has already started the business on 1st of April, and if they filed the official application to the FSA by the end of September, then they will be able to continue its business until they get the response from the FSA whether they will be licensed or not. This is the real situation. So that means the CoinCheck's application is still under review. So that's why they are allowed to continue their business until the day of the hacking. So, and some other, so of course, even in that case, the same rule applies to CoinCheck or other countries in the same situation with the licensed exchanges. But so I'm not sure. So. I don't know what exactly happens, so I cannot say what is the truth. But if they are totally compliant with the law, they must have already licensed. This is what I can say. So there was something missing. That's why their review has not finished yet. So that's a reality. So of course there are some. So let's say maybe so. Of course, if they say that if they strictly set the deadline previously in the law, this might not happen, but nobody knows.
Kawai, sorry, could I just ask how many people, like from your knowledge, how many people at the FSA are involved in reviewing the companies for the exchanges for approval? I mean, is it one or two? Or?
I heard that in total, the FSA has more than 30 people in that cryptocurrency monitoring team. But of course, for let's say for the basically a couple of staff review one company's application. Of course, if there's something, they may raise the issues to their senior person. But basically, one or two of staff reviewing the application. Also, they do the on-site hearings as well, basically. But actually, so if the explanation and the reality is different, I think it is very hard for them to find out. So it's a very, let's say, system matter, and they don't have. The FSA, I think, has the staff who has the very good knowledge about the system, but the number of them are very limited. Of course, in this industry, everybody wants to hire the good engineer right now. So, and let's say salary is very high. So I think the FS is not the first choice for the engineer. Anyhow, but so yes. So that's a reality, and I think So this is one thing. And your second question was.
Hardly the FSA that could be held responsible for hacking succeeding, any more than the government can be responsible for banks being robbed. My understanding is a lot of these hacks are related to.
Okay. Yeah. So. I heard of that, and I often heard of that, but. Because the blockchain, Bitcoin name blockchain is totally open sourced technology, so it's very difficult to, let's say, protect from the technology point of view, even if the hacker is in Korea, North Korea. So, of course, let's say. From the ordinary banking system or financial institutions, as you mentioned, Gai Tameho, those kind of transactions are prohibited, right? The money transfer is prohibited, basically. But in this world, it is very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to trace the cryptocurrency transfer to those kind of countries. Yeah, I have no clue.
Yeah. Yes. So the first question about that, this is totally my hypothesis, but one potential concern that Japan's FSA not like certified or licensed to CoinCheck is that they're also adding two cryptocurrencies. One is a Zcash, and another one is a Monero, which is the sales point of those two cryptocurrencies is anonymity. So total anonymity. And Zcash is providing technology which is called zero knowledge proof, and which provides you the full of anonymity. Like in blockchain, all the transaction can track, but like Zcash, Monero, it's even the transaction can make it untraceable, which obviously, like a regulator's point of view, they don't like it. If I'm a regulator, I would say that I don't like it untraceable thing, and which might be highly potentially used for money laundering thing. So this might be one of the reason, I assume, because comparing to other cryptocurrency in Japan, The CoinCheck is the only cryptocurrency exchange which accept Monero and Zcash than other cryptocurrency exchange. Like Bitflyer accept Lisk, but the Lisk is also the name of other cryptocurrency. But the idea of Lisk is that smart contract technology, which you can build up some decentralized application on blockchain technology. So comparing the Monero and Zcash, Lisk has more, futureless, regulator-friendly idea in their cryptocurrency system. So that's the thing I would say that as a hypothesis that they can license.
Martin, before your question, sorry. Yeah, after.
Thanks. John Boyd, IEEE Spectrum magazine. I understand that the government would like to facilitate the growth of cryptocurrencies, and so it doesn't want to come down heavy with regulations. But at the same time, given we've had 2 big hacking incidents in Japan, doesn't it make sense then to just bring in regulations? You must have a cold wallet. You must have enough money in insurance to pay back investors who may lose money in the future. Some really basic ideas like that. Why doesn't the government move on this? Because it's all very well saying we want to implement cryptocurrencies without heavy regs, but this is more damaging than coming in with good regulations, I would think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense, I think. Yeah, I have to say. But so I'm not a regulator, but maybe for the excuse, so they don't expect such a kind of big boom of the cryptocurrency business here in Japan, and also currently not so. When they drafted the law, only the geeks are doing cryptocurrency trading, maybe two years and 2 to 3 years ago. But of course, it's very popular right now here in Japan. So because so actually I think when they drafted the law, they don't know so much about the difference between the cold wallet and hot wallet at the time. So it's very difficult. Of course, to amend the law, it takes time, more than 1 year, of course. So then they, I think on the way, they realized that the hot wallet is has more dangerous than cold wallet during the review of the application. They did realize that, so they requested each exchange to report whether they are using hard wallet or not, what kind of percentage they are they stored Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies in hard wallet. They, as far as I know, they asked during the process of review. So I'm not sure what kind of answer the CoinCheck has made to the regulator. I don't know. So, but they under the review, the FSA I think asked these questions.
Yeah, I'm totally agree with you from the bottom of my heart. So, yeah, regulators should have done that. before, but it's too late to talk about that. But they can do that still right now. And I also sense that why they don't have done that before is that because they are not sure. If they strictly say that you should have this, then they should 100% crystal clear that this is the right way. If the thing they force as a regulation is the bad way or worse way, then backfire comes to regulators. That's the thing. So if everyone knows the best way for how to operate cryptocurrency exchange, the regulator knows the best way for operating cryptocurrency exchange, they can clearly provide the full package of guideline for you and strictly say that you should obey this. But they can't because they are not sure. Like if they say that like 100% of the customers cryptocurrencies must be stored on a cold wallet, then I may ask that, then how should I keep cold wallet private key? Then they need to answer. They should have clear answer. So you should write it down, the private wallet key on paper, and then you need to put it on bold, or I just keep it in my mind, or I should ask to my wife to keep it. Yeah, I do that bank account thing, but maybe the regulators don't like to do that. So that's the thing, what is happening. So no one knows, even the regulator doesn't know that which is the best way that before they regulate it really strictly. So that's the thing happening right now.
Very good. Question down here. Yeah.
Hiroshi Hiyama from AFP. Thank you for your time. Very insightful. Just follow up of the previous question. Which countries or economies have good regulation of cryptocurrencies, and then what are the characteristics that are common among the good practices or good laws and regulations? Is it the self-regulatory mechanism, or is it the public law? And then how is Japanese regulations differ from that? I'm with the impression that the Japanese regulations are quite lax. So question number 2, any system that you can think of to encourage engineers to stay up to date, or not to be lazy as far as protecting consumers, and etc. And question number 3, blockchain technology is wonderful, but the cryptocurrency, if it's for speculators and if it's for collector's item, could it continue to exist 10 years from now? Could it be like a collector's item? Could it be like a stamp or a trophy that people like to display but not necessarily use? Thank you very much.
Okay, so maybe
excellent questions. We keep the answers quite tight because we're a bit running out of time.
Yeah. Okay, so the regulation in the New York State, they have the crypto license.
Bit license. Yeah.
Bit license. It's very strict, people says. Other than that, I don't know anything currently. So it's very difficult to compare. So that's my first answer. So the next one, number 2 will be answered by the Hikaru-san. But the third one is, what was that?
What was the number 2?
Encourage engineer not to be lazy.
How do you,
okay.
Yes.
How? Okay.
Well,
okay. So I should answer now
yes,
for 2. Encouraging engineers, if I talk about our engineers, they are self-aware basically, because they're filled with curiosity to learn about blockchain. But and we also are these days inviting people from financial sector. Like a few years ago, our team is only filled up with engineers, software developers, blockchain developers, and designers, all the creators thing. But right now we're also involving financial specialists, lawyers, because that we're let's say me myself is just a few years ago just a kids starting our service or our IT section from garage, and to learn about the laws and the regulations and the financial thing, it's impossible to catch up. So only the thing we can do is like communicate with a specialist in the financial sector, the lawyers like Kawai-san, and let's I don't hesitate, but to educate them how blockchain works. So we don't try to like, well, no, we're trying, but it's easiest way to educate like financial people, lawyers and regulators how blockchain works. So we are as engineers, we are making effort for modern development, but also communication thing. How we can simply explain blockchain works, what's the vulnerability or the demerit of a blockchain. And once they understand, they can also provide us the good information idea comes up together with to solve all the problem. So the problem right now is that there is many good calls for like educating blockchain engineers about the technology thing, but the thing which is lacking is communicating as not only engineers but also like the industrial people. So who we need for this blockchain industry to make it bigger, like him or like other financial guy. That's the thing we need, and then that's the thing. I say that's the thing lacking in Japan, but in Estonia we team up with those.
Yeah, other thing is that not the totally same the one, but the regulation of the ordinary existing financial institutions, some of these kind of rules is better to be implemented in this kind of business as well. And your third question is whether the cryptocurrency will exist 10 years long, even. So you said that the blockchain technology is promising, right? So on the blockchain, so blockchain system is what blockchain does is to transfer the asset or property or currency to other people. This is the core part of the blockchain. So it's very, whether it is called currency or not, the transfer of asset is one of the key factor. So in that sense, I don't think if without the kind of asset or cryptocurrency, blockchain not totally meaningless, but the role is very limited. So I don't think this will happen.
Martin, I think you're going to have to follow. Hang on a second. What have we got? We've got 1 minute left. Right. Sorry. Can we? Sorry, because I know you've asked one question, but we've got one other. Can you make it a very quick question and two very quick answers, please?
Quick. Okay. In a flash.
Okay. Fred Dvorak from the Wall Street Journal. Quick question. How concerned are Japanese regulators and exchanges about the use of cryptocurrency for money laundering and by criminal organizations? And if they are concerned, what are they doing about it?
They are very concerned about it. So the AML and KYC rule is basically have the international standard under the FATF, and basically the Japanese government would like to follow the FATF rule. So currently, so all the exchange must have that kind of tracing system of that kind of things, and also all the exchanges has the under the severe KYC rule. But of course, whether they are following that kind of rules very strictly or not, I'm not sure. But the regulation itself is, I think, in line with the FATF guideline.
So that's the main way they're doing it.
Yeah.
Good. Right. We can, Martin, just to make very short question. Very short.
A follow-up to the question of insurance. My question is, isn't a problem of this theft that most of the exchanges are basically undercapitalized? When something like this happens, there's always the risk that with a theft, like Ubit in South Korea, the whole exchange goes out of business, and and then you have even more damage done than by the theft itself. So what about the question of capitalization of these exchanges? Do you think that they have to increase their capital, or that there will be capital requirements in the near future?
Yeah, I think it's one of the choice. Also, of course, the bank and also broker dealers is under the very strict capital requirements. So this might be one of the answer to let's say have the same rules. So capital they may required to increase capital. It's one of the idea, I think. But of course, to do that, they need to change the law. So it will not happen so soon.
Are we happy?
Okay. A quick answer. So Japanese regulators should regulate cryptocurrency exchange as same as bank.
Right.
Same as bank, same as bank level. Yeah.
Right. Well, you heard it from Kusaka-san. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much. Not often we have questions running right up to the wire. I think we probably could have continued for hours, but it remains for me really to thank you in the traditional way, which is to give you this honorary membership
Thanks so
of
much.
our fine club, and with the club's very, very deep thanks for joining us today and for answering all our questions. So you're welcome back at any time. Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you very much.